Alright, I know I'm late to the game here, but Puss in Boots: The Last Witch was fucking awesome. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the sequel where Puss in Boots dies. One of my favorite movies when I was little was the original Puss in Boots. It's been 11 years since the last one, and this one is phenomenal and way better. That's not to say that the original Puss in Boots is bad. This one is just stylistically completely different. It's absolutely no doubt that this movie is gorgeous. The animation alone is phenomenal. Every single scene looks like it's a painting. It reminds me of stuff like Intergalactic and Spider-Verse. I could stare at those movies for hours just because of how pretty they look. And this movie does not hold back on showing us gorgeous animation. It is a work of art. Other than just how it looks, the action, the comedy, the dialogue, this movie is just fantastic in almost every way. I like Puss in Boots in this movie, I think, more than I ever have. I love that when the movie starts, he's so focused on himself, and it's really entertaining, and it ties into the story really well. It's really fun to watch Puss in Boots be a pompous ass and love himself more than everything. It's not like he's a dick, he's just really cocky and fearless.
This all changes though when Puss realizes he only has one more life to live. Cats have 9 lives and he's used up 8 of them, so he needs to retire. And, you know, not die, because this time it'd be permanent. So Puss is forced to completely change his mindset and everything. In this movie, Puss is forced to learn that he needs to appreciate his life for what it is. In the beginning of the film, we're shown that Puss in Boots laughs at death.
I am Puss in Boots! I laugh at death! You see?
He doesn't see it as a serious casualty, mostly because of all the times he's come back as a cat and because he thinks that he can stop anything that crosses his path. Puss ends up spending most of this movie trying to find the wishing star so that he can wish back all 9 of his lives and he can live the life that he was already living. But he ends up having to realize that he needs to live and appreciate the last life he has left, because he hasn't appreciated any of the 8 previous. He's been living so far like he's immortal, and he just hasn't really given a fuck about any casualties that's happened to him. Also, the story beat of Puss being on his last life gave us the amazing animated villain that is Death. I don't know about villain, but animated antagonist that is just the embodiment of death. But we'll talk more about him later when I talk about all of the antagonists, because now that I think about it, there's like 3 groups of them. Not long after Puss retires, we meet our next 2 protagonists, Perrito and Kitty Softpaws. Now, anybody who's seen the original Puss in Boots knows that Kitty Softpaws debuted in that movie, so they're not going to sit here and reintroduce her as a character. She's already established, and they don't need to. But someone who is brand new to this movie is Perrito. When we meet him, he's a dog dressed up in a cat costume, trying to blend in with a bunch of other cats, pretending to be a stray one that lives under the deck of this old lady. Although our little Perrito does not have the happiest life, and nobody wants him as a dog, he seems to just be enjoying it for what it is. And that's what this movie is really just trying to tell you. Enjoy your life while you have it. It's not long, and it goes by really fast, and you shouldn't take it for granted. Obviously, this character doesn't have to learn that because he was already doing it. He already did appreciate his life for what it is. He had everything he ever needed, and now he had new friends, and that's something he didn't have before this movie started. The only thing he needed was friendship and people in his life, and he found those immediately. He's the only character who's with them when they're looking for the wishing star, who wants nothing to do with the wishing star. When I was originally watching this movie, I had a few people who thought he was really annoying, and I 100% disagree. He's not annoying at all. And he's also like the main character that helps the other characters learn what the point of their lives are. He helps them learn to just be happy and appreciate who they have around them and who's in their lives. When we meet up with Kitty Softpaws, she is still being the badass that she always has been. Her goal in this movie is to get to the wishing star so she can wish herself someone she can trust and depend on. Shit. Kitty may have a pretty good life, and she may appreciate her lives for what they are, and actually care and pay attention to how she can die. But she's lonely. Incredibly lonely. She has nobody by her side and has terrible trust issues, which leads her to not trust either of the characters in the beginning when she meets them again. It takes her almost the entire movie to warm up to Perrito. She doesn't trust Puss again until she hears him talk about how he feels bad for leaving her at the altar. 2 cats were getting married. She only does things by herself. It's not like she has a partner or anything because she doesn't trust anybody. She ends up realizing she doesn't need a star for this because the people she wanted to trust were right in front of her the whole time, throughout the entire movie. I think that's really, really cool. The whole lesson of the wishing star was that everything these characters wanted was right in front of them the whole time. But I will also get back into that later. Now, let's talk about the antagonists. Now, out of all the people that are trying to kill our characters in this movie, we have Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Jack Horner, and Death. Straight up. Now, not only are all of these characters entertaining, I'm gonna just fucking tell you why they are separately, because all of them are so much fun to watch on screen. I love that Goldie and the Three Bears go back and forth from being terrifying to really funny. On one hand, it's like, well, you know what? Goldie's running a crime family with 3 big-ass bear bodyguards, and that's kind of what I thought this was. But then you end up realizing that they're actually a family. Like, the whole fairy tale happened where Goldie stumbled into their house. They just ended up adopting her and inducting her into their bear family. The bears are really good people, other than the fact that they pretty much kill or do any illegal thing that Goldie tells them to do. They're really sweet and they care for her. And they're badly hurt when she tells them that her wish was to get a new family. A real family, not a bear family. But they're still willing to help her get that wish because they care so much about her. The bears themselves are really entertaining characters, and so is Goldilocks. I also just love when they give Puss in Boots and Kitty, like, opponents that they can fight that tower them in size. Just completely. Not even because it's like a human, but like it's 2 cats fighting 3 fucking bears. Also, just the designs of all 4 characters, being Goldilocks and the 3 bears, are really impressive. I like that all of them look weird and scary in their own right. I also absolutely love their voices, and I could listen to them talk forever. As I said, Goldilocks' wish is for a new family. She wants to not be an orphan anymore, and she wants to be relocated with her actual family. And although they are hurt by this, they help her anyway, because they love her. Goldie, like her protagonist, ends up having to realize that what she wanted was right in front of her the whole time. A loving family was already there waiting for her, helping her get a new loving family. And she ended up having to realize that that's selfish and that she doesn't need to do that. And that's kind of what most of the characters realize once they get the wishing star. Once Kitty realizes how Puss feels about her, she's not really interested in getting the star for herself. She already says that they can share the wish, and she doesn't actually know why Puss wants it. She just thinks that they can get it together. Pedrito just needed friends in his life, and that was solved when they showed up. So, he never even wanted the star to begin with. Puss needed to learn to take his life way more seriously and to appreciate the people around him and himself. Throughout the movie, while they're following the map to the wishing star, he ends up realizing that he appreciates and loves the 2 people around him. Puss finally learns to appreciate his last life, but that's not the only thing he has to face. It's not like Puss just needs to realize that he doesn't have a wish anymore. There's still one more thing he has to face. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is death. Puss, throughout this entire movie, is being chased by death, and he's trying to run from it. The other thing Puss realized he had to learn in this movie was to not run from his problems and to face them head on. Anytime he gets scared or isn't really fucking with the vibe, he leaves. He gets out because he doesn't want to be in this terrible situation anymore. Instead of facing his fears, he runs from them so he doesn't have to deal with them. It's why he left Kitty at the altar. It's why he spends this entire movie running from death. Now, Death is just such an amazing antagonist. Probably one of the best animated antagonists and just antagonists in general in anything I've ever seen. He is fucking terrifying, and that whistle is eerie as shit. The crazy thing is, he only fights Puss like 2 times, but he just constantly ends up showing up over and over again in the background to scare the fuck out of him until he inevitably shows up at the end to take Puss's last life. He decides that since Puss didn't take his first 8 lives seriously, that I should just cash it in now and take this one. Puss doesn't get to have this life back until he faces death. And it's not until Death realizes how bad Puss is fighting for this last life that he lets him have it. Because the whole point was that Puss is supposed to appreciate his life and not just take it for granted like it was nothing. Life is sacred and it shouldn't be wasted, and that's what Death was trying to get across to Puss. Well, that's what he was trying to say, but like, he was also saying it's too late, motherfucker, time to actually die. I will also say, rewatching this movie or just scenes from it, knowing that the big bad wolf is the personification of death makes it even more enjoyable. Because our characters don't know that. They think he's some fucking bounty hunter who's scary, but he's death. He's the Grim Reaper. It's little lines that just make him being death so much cooler. Like how he says that nobody's been able to stop him before. When you originally hear that, you just think, oh, this guy is just the shit. No, it's because he's the fucking Grim Reaper and you can't outrun death! It always catches up to you. It's so fucking cool. He's genuinely so fucking cool. Also leads to some of the best action and fights I've ever fucking seen. That's something this movie has on a lot of animated films and just these big budget action films in general. This movie has some of the best fight scenes I have ever fucking seen. The film does an excellent job at keeping your eyes focused on the screen and watching everything that's happening. You don't want to look away, it's all so beautiful. Overall, this movie is made for the whole family. I love this movie for being a family film. Genuinely an animated movie for the entire family to enjoy. And I love films like that. Obviously, animated films aren't just for kids, and obviously it's a huge disrespect to them when people say that or think it. Not only is the action really good, another thing that makes this for everybody is the comedy. It's funny as shit. The reason I didn't single any character out specifically as funny earlier is because all of them are. They all have their chances to shine in every different way. The comedy's just written really well and it's really clever. I obviously don't really have anything to criticize this film. There's not really anything I was upset about. I like that in December 2022, we got Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and Avatar: The Way of Water. And I just gave a shit about the Puss in Boots sequel. I'm more excited for Shrek 5 than Avatar 3, and I think that's a better mindset to have. Overall, I think I'm gonna give Puss in Boots: The Last Wish an 8 out of 10. So as always, like, subscribe, and save Norbit now. Goodbye, guys. Jack Horner also is incredibly entertaining. Voiced by John Mulaney, in this movie he owns a ton of random fairy tale knickknacks and shit. We end up realizing in this film that he is just the worst piece of shit in the world. Like, he is just fucking awful. There is no redeeming qualities about him, and that's kind of why he's one of the best characters in the whole movie. He doesn't give a fuck about what people think about him, and he doesn't give a fuck about any of the people around him. Even if they are helping him, they are just bodies on his fucking count because he does not give a shit about their lives as people. We watch Jack Horner lead multiple people into the open arms of death. We watch him actively let people die and just straight up fucking kill people. I think one of my favorite bits, and I know it was definitely something a lot of people also loved, was that little Jiminy Cricket clone who was on Jack Horner's shoulder, trying to be his conscience and telling him why the things that he's doing are wrong, and Jack just not giving a fuck at all for this thing to slowly realize and be like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Why are you doing this? Stop! And it's just really fucking funny.